Forklifts and stackers are the workhorses of our workplace. They are versatile, efficient, and nimble. They are so much a part of what you do that it's easy to take them for granted. It's incredibly important for your safety and others working around you that all equipment is in good working condition and safe to operate. To ensure this, we need to perform a detailed pre-use inspection of the MMHE at the start of every shift. Before you operate any forklift, make sure that the unit is safe to operate and never operate a defective forklift. This video will demonstrate how to conduct a proper pre-use visual inspection of a counterbalanced forklift and stacker. Remember, at Canada Post, safety starts with you.
Hi there, my name is Michelle Morissette, Master MMHE Trainer for Canada Post, and I'm here today to show you how to do the proper pre-use inspection of your forklift. It's important for your safety and the safety of those working around you that you thoroughly inspect your forklift each day before use. 5 minutes of your time will ensure that your forklift is safe and in good operating condition. Now if you're ready, let's get started, shall we? As you approach the machine, you want to have a look around for any obvious damage, maybe some oil slicks, just to make sure that everything's good. You want to make sure that there's no red tag affixed. And if you have the opportunity, maybe review the checklist and defect report from the previous shift to see if there was any damage that was noted. If not, you're good to go. You want to make sure that the capacity plate is fixed and legible. On this particular model of forklift, you have two capacity plates. You have the Canada Post capacity plate, which is mounted on the front, and you have the manufacturer capacity plate that's mounted on the inside dash. Just have a quick look to make sure that you can read them both, and then you're good to go. You also want to make sure there's an operator's manual on board. And before you move on, you want to make sure that the vehicle is secured, apply the parking brake, and turn off the power. Now before we continue with the battery inspection, if you work in a facility with tech services, your inspection will be limited to the visual inspection of the components only. If you work in a facility without tech services, you're going to have to go into a little bit more detail, and at that point you're going to need the appropriate training and you're going to have to wear the proper PPE, which is splash-proof goggles, acid-resistant gloves and apron, and direct access to an eye wash station. So before you do any type of in-depth inspection on the battery, make sure you've had the proper training and you're wearing the proper PPE. For the purpose of this video, our inspection will be limited to the visual inspection of the battery components only. Just remember to wear safety gloves though if you're going to touch any of the components of the battery. So let's get started. So when you're having a look at the battery, you want to first check the cables and connectors. You want to look for exposed copper or any damage. You want to have a look around, make sure all of your caps are in place, all of your covers are in place. And you want to make sure there's no excessive residue buildup around the caps. It can block the vent and cause undue pressure to build up in the cell. So just remember the 5 C's and you're good to go. So now the battery is good, we can continue with our inspection. Basically, we're just going to do a quick walk around, make sure everything's secure and it's not going to fall off if we move it. We'll start with the operator's compartment and then work our way around the unit. So we're first going to start with the pedals. We just want to make sure that they're functioning properly. We're going to press down and check for positive pressure. You want to press down on the brake pedal and then the accelerator and make sure that they both return to their original position. Go over, give everything a good shake. Seat is good. Check your seat belt. Make sure it's not frayed. Make sure the latch works properly. We're good. Work over. Check your mirror and your accessories. Make sure they're well fastened. Handle's good. Work your way down the overhead guard. Now when you're inspecting the wheel assembly, you want to have a look at the tire, the rim, lug nuts, look for any fluid leaks, and check for any obstructions behind the tire and the wheel itself. You really want to pay attention to the area where the tire connects to the rim. You want to look for any serious chunking or gouging or cracks that'll allow salt water to get in between the tire and the rim and potentially cause the seal of the tire to fail. Moving on, you want to have a look at the tilt cylinder. Make sure it's secured and there's no leaks. You want to have a look at the inside of the mast. Mast rails are well greased. The chains are secure, no slack. Cotter pins are in place. Retaining nuts are in place and secure. Work your way down. There's no hydraulic leaks. Have a look. The cylinders are secure. The cylinders are in good shape. We can keep moving forward. The backrest is secured, bolted to the carriage. Your side shift cylinders are in good shape. They're secured, no leaks. Moving on, you want to have a good look at your forks. You want to make sure that they're evenly spaced. They're not damaged, they're not bent out of shape. There are no cracks along the body of the fork. You want to make sure that both your fork pins are in place. Have a quick look at the carriage assembly. Look for hydraulic leaks. Make sure all the hoses are in place. Make sure there's no loose or hanging wires underneath the forklift. Work your way up the chain. Make sure it's well lubricated and there's no slack. That the hoses are well secured, and that that there is no space between the mast sections. You want to make sure that your backrest bolts are in place. Have a look at your tilt cylinder. Make sure it's secured and it's not leaking. You want to make sure that that far track is well greased. Work your way down. One last quick look to make sure there's no missing nuts and bolts. You want to look down inside the mast assembly again and make sure there's no debris or loose wires, hanging wires, or hydraulic leaks. Have a quick look at your side shift cylinders on this side. Make sure there's no scoring or leaks. And continue work your way back to the wheel now. Now we want to have a good look at the wheel again. Check the tire, check the rim, check the lug nuts, look for fluid leaks, and just have a quick look around. Make sure there's no obstructions or loose objects in the back of the wheel. Continue on. Your overhead guard is well fastened. Your accessories are well secured. You want to have a look at each control lever. Make sure they return to the neutral position. Continue towards the back of the machine. Your overhead guard is good and secure. Your battery restraint mechanism is in place. Overhead guard is fastened and secured. You want to have a look at that back wheel. Check the tire, the rim, the lug nuts. Look for fluid leaks. You want to look in the back for obstructions or debris. You want to have a look at that back light assembly. Give that handle a good tug. Make sure it's secure. Amber strobe light is in place. And finally, that back light. Make sure that your overhead guard is fastened and secured. You want to have a look at the rear wheel. You want to check the tire, the rim, the lug nuts. Look for fluid leaks. Check the back of the tire for obstructions. And finally, just make sure that your battery restraint mechanism is in place. So now that we've done a quick walkabout, we're confident that nothing will fall off if we move it. We can go ahead and get on, turn it on, and make sure everything works. So now you want to fasten your seat belt, adjust your seat, adjust your mirrors so that you have a clear view of what's going on behind you. Now let's turn the machine on, look at the dash, and let the unit cycle through its boot sequence. And we're good to go. Let's have a look at our loading lights, our strobe light, check our horn, and we're going to check our brake for positive pressure, right? So you want to push down on the brake and make sure it doesn't go all the way to the floor. Now we know all our accessories work. We go ahead and test our brakes now. So the first brake we're going to check is the parking brake. We want to make sure it holds the unit in place. Make sure the brake is on. Put the unit in drive. Try to accelerate forward a little bit. Just make sure it doesn't move when you accelerate. Now we can go ahead and test our service brakes. We're going to release the parking brake, put it in drive, lift our forks, move forward about 5 feet, test the brake. We're going to put it in reverse, test the brakes backing. We're also going to listen for the audible backup alarm. Now we'll move forward and test the steering. And back again. Our steering is good. We're going to go ahead and test our mast. We're going to cycle it through its full range of movement, but first you want to look up above and make sure the coast is clear. We're going to listen for any abnormal noises, binding, just to make sure everything's good, everything's well lubricated. We're going to start with the lift, then the tilt, then the side shift, and then back down again. Now our mast is good. We can go ahead and shut down the machine and park it. Now remember, whenever you're getting on or off, to use 3 points of contact at all times, and back out of the machine, don't slide forward. And that just about does it for the forklift. Now let's go over and have a look at the stacker. Now when you're inspecting the stacker, you're going to apply the same process that you would for the counterbalance forklift, with the exception of a few components that I'd like to go over with you now. The stacker has 2 sets of forks and 2 sets of controls. It's important that during the pre-use inspection, we cycle through each one of them. So we'll power up the unit, and we'll lift the support arms and the forks. You want to have a good look in and about the bogie wheels, make sure there's no obstructions or no damage to the wheel or the shaft itself. You want to have a run through of the controls that are on the safety bar. You want to lower the support wheels, lift them up again, try the horn. So now we're going to move over to the tiller arm. You want to check the switches for the support arms. Just lift and lower them. You want to check the fork switch. You want to check the horn. And you want to check the safety reversing switch. Now it's important that when you check this switch, that it actually changes direction. You just don't listen for this audible warning. You want to make sure it changes the direction, moves away from you. Okay. Now we're going to check the directional controller. We're just going to move it back and forth. That motion is also referred to as plugging. Now we're going to check our brakes. Our emergency brake down, and our emergency brake up. And we're going to check the steering. And we're going to check the tiller to make sure that it returns to the up position when it's let go from the operating position. We'll move on to the e-stop. You apply the e-stop, try to move the machine. Doesn't move, the e-stop is functional. Now there's still power to the tiller, but if you want to deactivate the switch, you have to twist the switch, shut down the machine, and then turn it back on again. Now the machine moves again. And finally, you want to have a look at the operator's platform to make sure that it's secured and fastened on both sides of the stacker. And that's it for the stacker. So there you have it. That's how to do a proper pre-use inspection of a forklift and a stacker. If you don't find any defects, you're good to go. Fill out your checklist and defect report, submit it to your supervisor, and have a great shift. If you do find defects, it's important to note it on the checklist and defect report. Advise your supervisor. Your supervisor will assess the severity of the defect and decide whether or not to red tag it and send it to tech service or to send you on your way. So remember, please never operate a defective piece of equipment. Your safety and the safety of those around you depend on it. Remember, at Canada Post, safety starts with you. Thank you.